Spotlighting Hawaii's leaders.
We want to bring in Governor David E.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Lieutenant Governor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Mayor Derek Kawakami.
Thank you so much, Senator, for being here.
Spotlighting the issues.
Where is the virus right now in our community?
How much is this overall going to cost the state?
How are you responding to the community's concerns? Talk about the level of citations that you guys are writing.
Spotlight Hawaii with Yanji Denise and Ryan Kalei Suji on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Long's Drugs.
Well, aloha, and thanks for starting your week off with us. I'm Ryan Kalei Suji, live in Arizona, joined by Yanji Denise, who's back home in Honolulu. And this is Spotlight Hawaii on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. Yanji, this week we will be shining the spotlight on the races for Honolulu City Council.
That's right. There are 4 seats in the City Council up for grabs. Of course, the City Council makes so many important decisions when it comes to our day-to-day life here on Oahu. So we've invited the candidates to join us in forums throughout this week and next. Starting us off today for District 6 is Tyler dos Santos-Tam and Traci Toguchi. So we want to welcome them both now. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Traci, I want to start off with you. This is a relatively big district, and it has some interesting parts where you have a lot of urban areas, but you also have, Kalihi Valley and Paoa and some other, not necessarily rural, but perhaps less urban than Kaka'ako and downtown. Tell us about what you think is the most important issue for this district and why you're running.
I believe that would be crime. As a staff member, I currently work as a legislative analyst in this District 6 office. The calls and concerns that we often receive are the most would be crime related. So that would be whether it affects some single family dwellings where people are just walking onto some of their property and taking property of theirs, or crime, violent crime. We have Chinatown in this district as well. So my reason for running for this seat is because the constituents had encouraged me to do so. They were concerned about who was going to continue after the current council member, Carol Fukunaga, and her history with this district and her good work that she's been doing. So I am looking to help continue her good work. Obviously, I'm my own person, so I will be able to put also my own ways of doing things and addressing matters, which is what the constituents asked me to do.
Okay, and Tyler, same question for you. You know, why run in this district, and what do you see as the biggest issue facing it right now?
Well, this is where I was born and raised. I grew up in Lower Lava Heights in Liliha and served on the Liliha neighborhood board for 6 years. And as a neighborhood board member, and having been on the campaign trail, been to every corner of the district, as you point out, it's a big area. And I think the common thread, as Traci mentioned, is crime. That's something that the next council, absolutely needs to tackle in a serious way. And of course, homelessness and affordable housing, I would say, are number 2 and 3. And we need leaders who are going to be able to do all 3, to be able to work on these and come up with solutions that are actually going to make a difference, not just hold meetings, but take action.
So let's dive into some of those issues and focus starting with crime, as you both mentioned. Tyler, we'll start off with you. There have been, of course, calls for HPD to do more, but also recognizing that there is a shortage of available police officers to really help with just everything that's happening around the island and also within the district. How do you feel that the council can maybe support more efforts for HPD as a whole? And what other initiatives do you believe are necessary to help reduce crime in this district?
Well, if I'm elected to the council, there's 3 key areas that I'm going to work on in terms of crime. As you point out, recruitment and retention is really key. And I think that we need to work with SHOPO. We need to work with the department to come up with some ways that we can be, more flexible and make sure that we are, keeping our officers. There's no point in training them up and having them be poached by Oakland or Las Vegas or Seattle or some other city. And so recruitment and retention is key. I think number 2 is throughout our district, we have really effective, neighborhood security watch programs and community policing programs in places like Chinatown and Palama, and we need to support those. and expand those. You know, I've worked with neighbors in many parts of the district to try to stand up their own neighborhood security watch, and I'm going to be hands-on to keep on doing that. But the final thing, and a lot of other candidates, you know, haven't been talking about this, is the prosecutor's office. You know, if you look at the 1990s and early 2000s compared to now, you know, we're not processing as many cases as we were. So a lot of these, you know, repeat offenders just keep going through the system. It's like a revolving door. That has to end, and we need to make sure we're supporting the prosecutor's office in their efforts to put the bad guys, you know, behind bars and make the punishment an actual deterrent, not just a revolving door.
Traci, same question for you regarding crime in the area. Your thoughts on ways to help to combat this and support for HPD overall? It looks like we may have had some issues with Traci. We're going to bring her back into the stream right here. Thanks, Traci. We ran into it's a small technical issue, but it was perfect for your time right now. Let's jump right back into it regarding the issue of safety within the community as a whole, as you touched upon. What are some of the initiatives that you feel are important and necessary to keep the area safe?
Right. With respect to what the city council can do is to help, of course, appropriate funds for the salaries, for the, the recruitment and the retention of the officers. I also believe that there should be competitive benefits as well. So if that could be how the council can support HPD. Also, different, for example, the recent resolution that was supporting the bargaining unit, the union agreements increase in compensation. So that's what the council can do, and I would obviously continue to support to do that and advocate for better pay. The other ways, neighborhood security watch programs, part of the community policing teams. What I found have been when neighbors who've been living for years, for example, in Liliha, next to each other, and they're just trying to help each other now. You know, that they're realizing, yes, that HPD can't be everywhere. So they're saying, oh, here's some footage, surveillance footage to help you with, you know, address that issue. It's I think getting back to that small town feeling in a district that's pretty large, but I believe that doing so can help all of us.
You know, Traci, I want to stick with you. Of course, we know it's not illegal to be poor. It's not illegal to be homeless, but there is an intersection between, you know, the homeless issue and the crime issue as well. And I'm interested to know, you know, we've been talking about homelessness for a long time. I happen to live in the district, and I feel like, you know, there's a lot of parks I just can't take my kids to because there's too many homeless folks. And, you know, it's just a very difficult situation. What specifically do you think that the council can do when it comes to addressing homelessness? Question for both, but Traci, let's start with you.
Okay, well, you mentioned a couple of things. So with respect to homelessness and crime, I don't know exactly what those numbers are with respect to the correlation, the direct correlation. But for homelessness, what I have been saying is to get the imperative stakeholders to the discussions. For example, those who are experiencing homelessness and houselessness, and who have on Oahu to know firsthand, you know, why and how they got there and what they would do to be willing to go into housing. I think permanent housing is very important. There's a Houston program in which they've been finding success with placing the homeless or those who are houseless into permanent housing. So that way they're not just living that kind of lifestyle and they just can be able to go and you know, feel settled and starting a life again. With respect to, I mentioned also the American Civil Liberties Union. I believe that they're an important stakeholder to bring into the discussions because oftentimes they have concerns, valid concerns about the legislation that is passed. And so if we can bring them to the table, that would, I believe, alleviate a lot of these issues. With respect to, you mentioned parks, there are different the solutions that the City Council, as well as the Department of Parks and Recreation, part of the mayor and his administration, have been looking at. I believe it included park rangers or different programs like that. So I would be open and willing to look at that more closely.
Tyler, what's your take on how we best address homelessness in the district?
Yep. Well, as you point out, these two issues are linked together, unfortunately. And being, you living downtown and I live in Kaka'ako, and I spent a lot of time in Chinatown, this very urban core. Obviously, there are a lot of issues here. One thing that I think is really key that I strongly support is the mayor's CORE program, which is the pairs of social workers that go around in Chinatown. It's a pilot program, just in Chinatown. I think they're expanding into Waikiki, but we need to expand that program. Oftentimes, when there's a homeless person sleeping in front of somebody's business or in the park, downtown, you call the police, and all the police really can do is kind of shoo them away. And that doesn't really solve the issue. But the CORE, the mental health workers, they can treat, their immediate health needs. They can pair them with social services. It's really, really helped. We need to expand that beyond the borders of Chinatown to address the encampments, at the base of Pacific Heights or in Nu'uanu. Even in Kalihi Valley, at the Court Park there's this encampment behind there, and a lot of neighbors, just like your family, don't feel safe taking their kids there. So that's the first thing, is expanding the CORE program. Housing First is another one. We had good momentum with Housing First a few years ago. We need to keep that momentum going. And beyond that, with the new gubernatorial administration coming in, I think there's a really good opportunity to work with our state and federal partners to make sure we're getting every single dollar that we can. Oftentimes the city needs to put forward matching funds, but if we need to put 30 cents forward to get $1 from the federal government, that is an investment that I think makes a lot of sense. And we need to be pushing for in order to address this incredibly deep homelessness issue that we have in our community.
Well, one of the things that we like to do in these conversations with candidates is allow the candidates to ask each other questions. And so we're going to get to that now. Tyler, we'll start off with you. Your question for your opponent.
Sure. Well, Traci, you mentioned this earlier. You've worked in the council office for the past few years, and being out in the community, I've gotten a sense that people are hungry for a change and want something different. So what would you have done differently over the past few years, looking back on your time at the council?
I've been with Councilmember Fukunaga's office since July 2020, so I was initially just brought in just to assist with different tasks, and then I was, because of my background, I've been able to do more substantive work, and then thankfully I've been able to be here. For my role, I have to do the work that I'm assigned. So obviously for the work that I've been assigned, I wouldn't change anything, because those are, Councilmember Fukunaga has usually given me carte blanche. She trusts me to be able to mitigate and handle and resolve the issues with the constituents. So I would just speak to that, because that's what I have direct control over.
All right, and Traci, your question for Tyler.
I really thought about this, and honestly, I from what I've seen, many times these questions tend to, I guess, kind of maybe put the other candidate on another, just maybe put them in another more of a, I don't know, negative light, or just in a corner. And I appreciate Tyler, and I just don't have any question for him.
Okay, I'm interested. We'll get to some more policy in a minute, but I'm interested to hear a little bit about you as citizens and as individuals. What do you think? And Traci, we can start with you. What is unique in your life and your work experience that you bring to this seat?
So I was born in Nu'uanu, and my parents have roots. So my grandfather owns Chevron service station on Pali Highway, School Street by Pali Highway. My mother grew up on Aleva, and they both owned and operated a pie shop in Kaimuki that they had taken over from my mother's parents. And currently, so I was actually a caregiver for my grandfather with my family, and currently I am a caregiver for my parents. They are pretty independent, but they also depend on me for their grocery and their transportation, medical appointment needs, and things like that. So my background, having that understanding and I guess what it means to be a caregiver, which I understand a lot of people are experiencing, especially in this district. This district has 50% over age 50 and 52%, from my understanding, age 60. So this is a very important population, and one that I seek to help, and I have been helping since I was also 17 years old, and even 9 years old. My mother would take me to Kuakini Medical Center to sing for them. My platform as Miss Hawaii was seniors. I published a handbook for seniors. I visited over 100 senior organizations throughout the state of Hawaii. My background also, having worked in the public, private, nonprofit, government sectors. I worked for the city, state of Hawaii, the federal government. So I have that knowledge of being able to work with the departments, understand what government is, and as a small business owner, understand that of the difficulty of making just the payments for the insurance premiums. So I believe that all of that, combined with also my paralegal background, helps the constituents.
Yeah, and Tyler, what about you? What in your own life experience do you think makes you uniquely qualified for this seat?
Again, having been born and raised in the district, I've been an active member of our community for years. And over the past few years have been a tireless advocate on a number of issues. I was a co-founder of Hi Good Neighbor, which has fought against the monster home issue all around the island. And we've proposed some new legislation that has gone into effect and, of course, needs to be enforced. But we've also not just fought against the monster home issue, but against illegal vacation rentals, against illegal game rooms in our community. And this really is about creating a more livable space. And so, I'm not somebody who's, just sitting on neighborhood board to be there, but I really want to take action, and being a council member, I think, would give me the opportunity to do that on behalf of the constituents all throughout the district.
Getting back to some of the issues, one thing that continues to be top of mind for so many people within this community and district, as well as the island, is the rail project and where we're at and what we're seeing with continued delays and the budget that continues to grow. Tyler, we'll start off with you. How do you feel that your role in the city council can help to shape what happens with the rail, and your thoughts of where we're at with this project, as what we hear could be months away from the city receiving the keys to begin that first segment, and a lot of people looking forward to that. But your thoughts overall on how you believe that the city this project can be managed moving forward.
I think this ties into the previous question and sort of how, my life experiences shape how I view things. For 6 years, I was the executive director of the Hawaii Construction Alliance, and I come in with a background, in the industry. And I think one of the big issues that remains an unanswered question, or unanswered series of questions, is the change orders, the fact that these costs have ballooned, and the fact that it seems to the public that there's very little oversight. And I look forward to being on the council to be able to ask these very detailed questions. One of the reasons why these initial interim start date has been delayed is, the cracks on the western segment of the project. And we need to figure out what went wrong there and make sure that that's not going to repeat itself on future segments. We need leaders who are going to be able to do that. And so that's what I'd like to be able to do as a council member. Obviously, having the approval from the FTA that happened, just over the past few days is great news. We need to, make sure that we adhere to that plan and that we're able to, push things forward there. I'm a public transit user myself. And so I look forward to having the project, up and running, but we need to make sure that it's done right and that somebody is really asking these tough questions and in an informed way, not just to ask it for show, but to really get down into the details.
Traci, same question for you regarding the rail and where we're at overall. Your thoughts on how the city can help manage this project moving forward into this critical phase?
I think I have said this before, but I did serve as an information specialist too, in the public involvement department for HART. So I have the knowledge of the inner workings and the history of this project. So I believe that the semi-autonomous status is an issue. I would like to see maybe looking at that and how the city council can more help the board and the current leadership, who I believe are doing a great job. It's not an easy task. This project has seen many different phases and issues. To me, safety is the most important, and obviously costs. So that's what I would be looking at doing as far as the role as a council member.
I want to bring in some questions from the audience. Tracy, we'll start with you. This is from Roberta. She says, what are your key issues to address monster homes? And following up, Maui County has been much more progressive in enforcing removal of non-permitted structures. Is this something that you would support? We know there's a lot of issues with DPP right now, but what are your thoughts on monster homes and how to better regulate them in the district?
What was her question? Her question was, what are the key issues to enforcing, to address monster homes? So I believe that, and this is how I usually resolve all constituent issues, is that I look at the current laws. And I've said this before with respect to the large-scale single-family dwellings. I do believe that there are loopholes. I don't want to say that there are just some kind of blanket solution, because usually these issues are resolved on a case-by-case basis. But I would look at that and then look at the permit, what they're requesting. Obviously, there are issues there with the permit requests and the processes that we need to address there. But really, I would have to look at the laws, and that's how I believe that we can better address that.
Yeah, and Tyler, what do you say to Roberta? You know, she mentioned Maui and that they actually remove structures. Is that something that you would support? And what do you think can be done when it comes to monster homes in the district?
Absolutely. This is something that I've been, fighting against probably for 6 years, maybe more at this point, through my work with Hi Good Neighbor. We've pushed forward a number of bills, and I think looking at the law itself, it's a matter of enforcement. We've seen DPP struggle with this, and sometimes, there are a number of structural issues that come into play here. The inspectors go out, and if there's no one working on the site, or if they don't get access, that's clearly a problem. We also need people at the very beginning of the permitting process to really be reviewing these plans. I mean, once that gets set into motion, it's very hard to reel it back. And so, DPP is going to need to staff up, and we're going to need to be on top of them every day to make sure that, we're checking the plans up front. And as things get built, that it's complying with code. On the back end, the city has tens of thousands of dollars, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in outstanding fines from people who aren't complying with the law. We need to be a lot more aggressive in collecting this. And as Roberta points out, utilizing the city's condemnation process, if somebody is being very, very obstinate and not complying, that's a threat that we need to, hold over them in a serious way. And I think there's some opportunities there to get people to follow the law.
Staying on this issue of house, Tracy, do you want to add something?
Right, just to address the question about, or the comment about Maui. So from my understanding and talking with with our attorneys, is that the issue is that if the city removes structures that are already permitted, that is obviously a liability issue for the city, right? And so if we are going to seek to do that, to me, we would have to look at, again, what are those particular instances in which there were loopholes, or maybe if there were some kind of wrongdoing, that we could prove that in order to remove the structures. I don't believe that that's impossible, but we do have to look at those kinds of details.
I want to just quickly get also your thoughts on DPP and what we're seeing with these backlogs. Of course, many people waiting potentially 12 months, even more, to get any sort of simple project approved, and it's really causing a headache for a lot of these people who just want to do a renovation, also businesses that are also held to a timeline. Tyler, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on what you believe is the best remedy now that we're seeing these backlogs, and how to get through that and how to expedite the process moving forward?
So there are a number of moving parts here. First and foremost, as we know, staffing is a critical issue. If we don't have the staff, we can't push things forward. I think software, looking at the processes, e-plans was supposed to help, right? A few years ago, we implemented e-plans on the city level, which in some cases sped things up, and in other ways was an impediment. And there's probably ways that we can deal with the software and the processes there to make it more transparent to permit applicants, so they know where they are in the process, where they are in the queue. And then I think, one thing that I'm willing to explore, because you need a permit for a lot of things, from a chain link fence to enclosing your garage to something very simple. For some of these very, very simple things, maybe we can have some sort of expedited process for below a certain threshold to at least get those off of DPP's plate, so they can focus on the bigger things that need to be moved forward. Finally, when it comes to affordable housing projects, a lot of these Bill 7 type projects where we're looking at affordable rentals, are also getting stuck in the queue. And I think it's worth putting together maybe a special team within the department that can, push those forward in the most expeditious way possible.
Traci, same question for you regarding DPP and your thoughts on how to resolve some of the backlog that we're seeing there.
So with any issue as well, I look to subject matter experts. And so in this case, there are many developers, architects, of those who are knowledgeable about even former city workers who are knowledgeable as to how best to address this. So they can look at what areas to address immediately, what are some other areas and alternatives or options that we can seek to employ. So I would look at perhaps some kind of task force. I know that a constituent has offered his contribution to that. So I think that would be a good way to move forward.
I'm interested to hear from both of you. We're almost out of time, so we'll get to closing statements in a moment. But I would just love to know about your leadership style, what kind of leader you see yourself. The council, of course, is a very collaborative place, but you're each representing your own interests for your own constituents. So Traci, let's start with you. How would you describe your leadership style?
Very collaborative. I love working with people. I love my job. I love working with the constituents and also with the city council. The council members are all very easy to talk with and to be able to share ideas with. They're very open and always willing to help. And so I'm very impressed, and I would love to continue to work with them now as their colleague. I like to get everyone involved in helping to vet information. As I mentioned, the subject matter experts, I would rely on them. As well as obviously the mayor and his administration, the departments. They're incredible to work with, and then community leaders and stakeholders.
And Tyler, same question for you. How would you describe your leadership style?
I think the main thing for me as a leader is to get things done. And I think that's what the constituents, want. And as I've been going door to door for the past more than a year, we've already started, putting in requests, working with the departments to clear out things like illegal dumping sites, to deal with, projects that don't have monster home projects that don't have permits, and a number of other things. And I think that is, really what drives me. In order to do that, of course, you need to, bring everyone together and get them, in a huddle and get them, on the same team, so to speak. But the main thing is we need to deliver. And as your council member, it would be my honor to be able to work hard for you to get results.
And with that, we'll kind of head right into your final statements for those who are watching, and especially for those who live within your district. Your final thoughts and message to those watching. Tyler, we'll start off with you.
We have the opportunity in just a few weeks with ballots coming out, and of course, by election day of November 8th, to make a choice for our, next city council member. I promise to work hard each and every day on your behalf to address the rising crime in our community, homelessness, affordable housing. These are the top issues that I hear about door to door. We're also, going to work hard on smaller issues too, whether feral chickens in Kalihi, or whether it's, as we've talked about a little bit, monster homes in Laliha and Kamehameha Heights and Paoa. These are all things that we need to be working on together. And it would be my honor to have your support so we can get started working on these.
And Traci, your final message for viewers and voters in your district.
Yes, I really love, as I said, helping constituents. It's what motivates me to wake up every morning. I think about them and what they're experiencing, and I'm grateful, and I would appreciate the opportunity to continue to help them as their council member, or I would have more. I don't want to say control, but more of the opportunity to do so. Being in the city gives me the opportunity to help the constituents where they cannot necessarily help themselves. Many times they contact the city or state agencies or federal, and they have a difficult time maybe communicating what their issue is. And so my being able to do that as a paralegal, working with the city council as well as the city's attorneys council to be able to help to mitigate and address and resolve their issues, I believe is my strength, and I will continue to do that. A lot of these issues are not easy. They take a long time, a lot of follow-up. A lot of these issues that Councilmember Fukunaga and these projects and initiatives that she started, they are continuing. And so she has given me a lot of the history about them, and I'm able to do that. There's no learning curve for me. I can get in there and already continue to start working not only on the more simpler issues, but the long-standing and very complex issues that does require oftentimes looking closely at the law, which is my strength.
Okay, well, Traci Toguchi and Tyler Dos Santos-Tam, City Council candidates for District 6, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan, great to hear from them. And as we said at the top, we are going to be speaking with all the candidates running for those 4 open seats on the council. You know, the council has such an important role to play in our day-to-day lives here in the city and county of Honolulu. Interesting to hear sort of the different takes, the different approaches. You know, you heard Ms. Toguchi there at the end, really sort of aligning herself, the current council member, Carol Fukunaga, and basically saying that her term or her candidacy is kind of a continuation of Councilmember Fukunaga's leadership up until this point. And Tyler Dos Santos-Tam saying that, you know, when he goes out in the district, he hears with a lot of people who want change, and he positioning himself as a very result-oriented person and saying that, you know, he's going to bring that energy to the race. So interesting to hear both of their takes. And of course, ballots are dropping soon.
Yeah, and we're going to be hearing from, as you mentioned, all the different candidates, but a lot of the issues that have been discussed throughout this campaign, whether it be from the candidates for governor all the way down to city council, many of the same issues that we speak about with some of the higher candidates of leading the state are the same types of problems and things that many people want to hear about how the city council can affect, because ultimately a lot of those things with the city council races are directly impacted with smaller districts and opportunity to impact more people. So we heard some of the differences there when it comes to just crime, their thoughts on rail, as well as DPP, which continues to be a concern for many people who are waiting for their permits to be processed. And so we'll continue on in these types of conversations. On Wednesday, we focus our attention to the council race in District 2, which will cover parts of central Oahu and extending all the way to the North Shore. So many different types of issues, although there are many of the same overlapping. We'll be talking about some of the issues that affect those communities as well. So looking forward to that conversation here on Wednesday with the 2 candidates, and hope you will join us for another episode of Spotlight Hawaii. We'll see you then. Aloha.
Aloha.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Long's Drugs.